Hey there, Aquarius. Happy new moon to you. This is the new moon in Leo. And I have to say, if ever there was a new moon that would be helpful for your relationships and partnerships, this would be it. A new moon in your seventh house. So what I'm going to be doing in this short forecast is taking you from today's new moon right the way through to the full moon in Aquarius on the 9th of August. Now, in this 2 weeks, there's so much going on. I don't know where to start, honestly. And what really comes over the most is that there are quite a few strong themes from the new moon coding to the full moon coding. And I really feel that, we're moving into less inhibited times, with more purpose, more mission, a sense of playfulness, a sense of new identity. But that is coming because we are unmasking ourselves. We are shining a light onto those areas of our personalities and our psyche that just haven't been seen for a long time. To me, this is a time of inner renewal, a death of the false self. Even if it's like creating chaos, there is this element of change. And of course, your ruling planet, or one of your ruling planets, just really moved signs just 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Really, just it's not even that. It's like 2.5 weeks ago or something. So these are very, very new and fresh days. So yeah, there's some big questions that are going to come out of this session, I'm sure. There are 3 things that I've got in my mind whilst I'm reading this. I'm just going to share them with you. First of all, what truth are you remembering about yourself beneath the noise of everything that's going on right now? So I'm hopefully going to be answering that. Also, what part of you is returning? What part of you is about to return stronger, safer, softer, wiser, more illuminated? And also, where have you been hiding, and what happens when you stop hiding? So these are 3 core questions that I'm hoping will come out. If you're new to this channel, my name's Louisa Tanner Munson. Hello. Welcome to Feel Good Astrology. Hope you enjoy it. And if you've been here before and you've come back for some more, then thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So as I bring up my slides, I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody that supports this channel, because you really are making it. Thank you so much from me. Really, what I would like to start with is just the energy from the new moon to the full moon. This is a waxing moon forecast, which means that the moon is going to be getting bigger and bigger as we go through this 2-week period. The new moon, you'll see there's no illumination. This is a time for self-illumination. This is where we tune into ourselves, and all of our gifts are coming from deep inside. This is a very sort of deep, quiet, reflective, and personal time. And so this is also a time where we're laying groundwork. So, we're laying down the intentions that we might want to bring about into the world. Now, if like me, you like a bit of gardening, you might be sowing seeds. And that you don't move them straight away. As a shoot comes up, you wait a little bit for the roots to establish. You let the sunlight come in, you let nature take its course. And hopefully, the plant, its own energy, its own strength will also come into play. And it's only when everything has had its kind of way with it that you maybe uproot it and put it into a final destination. That's a bit like your intentions. It's not enough for you to just will it to happen. This is about you sowing the seeds, but then stepping out of the way so that life can shine some sun on it, that somebody else can hear it or feel it and get involved. And also that the intention itself may well spring into its own life form. So yeah, this is a very sort of creative time. And as you're coming up to the first quarter, exactly 1 week in, that's the time when you're challenged to really define what it is you're wanting to create. You might have a few strands coming up and you might be thinking, I'm going to go with that one, but these 2, they're not for me right now. And that's good. That kind of definition is helpful, because for the rest of the time of this 2-week period, things are going to speed up. More information, more help, more nudges from the cosmos are coming in to help assist you. And as we're coming up to the full moon, this is a time of culmination. This is a time when a lot of things can come in at the same time. It can be overwhelming. It can be emotional. It's a very psychic time. can be a time of completion. So yeah, that's to give you a kind of overview of the overall moon energy, but the planetary energy is quite different. So these are the three biggest days, and funnily enough, they are the new moon, they are the first quarter day, and also the full moon. It's not always like that, I'll be honest, but what really caught my eye was this kind of repetition of pattern. See, on each of these days, there is something that is making an exact conjunction or connection. In fact, not a conjunction, sorry, a trine, a square, or an opposition with the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. And so the Saturn and Neptune conjunction, wherever it is in your chart, is a place of, it's almost like a nexus point of deep, deep change. And, you know, on the day of the new moon, the sun and the moon are in a trine to it. So it's really working on that energy. Venus makes a square to it halfway through this forecast period. And then right at the end, Mars is making a really strong opposition to Saturn, an opposition to Neptune, and it's also trining one of your ruling planets. In fact, your ruling planets as an Aquarian, according to whether you're modern or traditional, would be Uranus and Saturn. Mars is making he's making an exact connection with both of them on the day of the full moon. So this full moon is super powerful for you. So other things going on, like Mars is going into Libra, Venus is going into Cancer, the Mercury Cazimi is going to speed things up, I think. But anyway, let's have a look at the charts. Let's see what's coming up. So, yeah, what's really catching my eye here, and it's kind of unmistakable, is the fact that this new moon in Leo is really right at the start of your 7th house. It's in your 7th house. That's about partnerships. It's everything that's not you, you know, so it could be your partner. It could also be the friends that you're bringing into your life. Also the kinds of people you're attracting. Now it's in opposition, an exact opposition on the day of the new moon to Pluto, which is in your 1st house. And the 1st house is everything about you. So there is this kind of polarity set up right at the outset of you and everything that's not you, you and everything that you're projecting onto other. There's you and there's everything that you don't see in yourself, but you see it in everyone else. It's you and also what you see other people doing and what you're not acknowledging in yourself. So this is interesting. This is a place of absolute projection, which is interesting because I always think at the time of the full moon, that is a time of the great big projection screen. So this is a new moon. And as we're moving towards the full moon, you'll see that we've got a kind of similar theme going on because the full moon is again through the 1st and 7th house, only this time Pluto's in an opposition to Mercury retrograde. So it strikes me that this space here, the 7th house, is a really magical place in this next 2 weeks because yes, you've got the new moon sowing its seeds for relationships. It's sowing its seeds for a much better relationship with everybody. It's sowing seeds for a sense of partnership and grace and opportunity. But the Mercury retrograde here is really unraveling your thoughts about relationships, why they work, why they haven't worked, what you might do differently, where you might have projected where they did. All of that stuff is going to be really picked up and worked on in quite a big way. So it's a very sort of important and possibly a bit of a tense time because the 1st and the 7th house are such important houses in our charts. To me, this really looks like a turning point for you. So maybe, you know, if you've been in a relationship and it hasn't been that strong, if it hasn't been that supportive, this is a turning point. Now, you know, not using this for relationships now, I want to really look at what this might be meaning. You know, Pluto here in your 1st house, I remember vaguely what it was like when Pluto went through mine. It's usually a time when people get much bolder, much more courageous, much more fearless. And we have a strong sense of ourselves when Pluto's in the 1st house. It really is defining us and defining our power. And yeah, we really are full of our power. And, you know, the one, I've probably mentioned this to you before, in fact, I've got a Pluto through the houses playlist. And the only, or the video that I get the most, not complaints with, but feedback from, very strong feedback, is from people with Pluto in the 1st house, transiting in the 1st house, saying, you know, and they're all so strident. It obviously really raises the energy of people when it's in in the first house, because you're on this trajectory of power, a trajectory of influence, and kind of working through what that means to you. If you haven't stepped into your power before, this is a really heady time. And so this new moon in opposition to the power, I think, is well, it could be interpreted in a few different ways, but one of them, I think, is the fact that it feels like maybe other people have got it a bit easier. Other people have got it a bit more fun. It's a bit more lighthearted. They don't have to try as hard. They can just kind of be their kind of central self. The sort of Leo motif is that they are the center of the universe. And so this kind of new moon in the place of your partnership, it might feel like everyone else is the center of the universe, and yet you're really sort of transforming yourself right now. And it probably feels a bit harder, not easier. And so it may well bring up a sense of tension that way. You might also, this might also be a calling to ease off a little bit on the Pluto energy. Not to say that your destiny and your transformation you're making at the moment isn't important. It really is. But just to kind of take your foot off the accelerator just for 2 weeks at least, until we pass out of this intense new moon, full moon time. Because right now, this Pluto energy is competing for your relationships. It's competing for everything that is alive without its influence. So your partners might seem like they've got a life of their own, which they should, that they are on their own thing, they're starting something new, they're fun, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, where's my invitation? So this Pluto, the sense of control that's coming in, like I said, it's heady, but it's also perceived as being controlling. It can be perceived as being a bit heavy. It can be conceived as being a bit rigid and unyielding. I wonder what it might be if you were to just relax a little bit, take off the power shoes, take off the power shoulder pads, and kind of sit back and just think, I wonder what it would be like if I was just to surrender for a little bit. There's that film, Yes Man. I don't know if you've seen it, but in that, the main characters, there is this day and they have this yes day for their kids, and everything the kids say, they have to say yes to. It's interesting to see adults saying yes to things that they wouldn't do, but also seeing the results of that. Now, my kids have actually asked me to do the same, and I actually said no to them. So maybe I should follow my own advice here. But it occurs to me that when people are asking, like suggesting something new that you would be bristling about and thinking, no, over my dead body. To me, this is suggesting that, right now it could be really helpful to be very spontaneous. Now, what is great is around the time of the full moon, there is this beautiful, spontaneous and very direct energy coming in. And I do think you'll be feeling better. But around the new moon time, if you're feeling a little bit off, my recommendation is to just kind of let go of everything you're trying to hold on to just for a bit. Just, allow yourself some peace and quiet, and allow yourself to not be important, because I really think the reflection of that will be helpful. And I also think your new moon buddies and your partners will want to include you a bit more, and you might have some fun. You might learn something. It's actually stopping you from learning more about your partnerships right now. So just have a little stop. It's not forever. I mean, Pluto's going to be going through this part of your chart for a really long time, for at least another 19 years. So, you don't have to learn it all in one day. So kind of like shelve it a little bit. Because also Mercury is going retrograde, and this is also showing your intense feelings and how you're transforming them, and what that might mean in terms of your relationships, but also what it might mean in terms of your power. If you're defining power as feeling in charge of things, feeling a sense of control, that's one thing. But for me, the true power would be to feel comfortable around free people, to feel comfortable about spontaneous people. For me, the real freedom would be not being triggered by other people's behaviors. That's a real freedom. That's when you really know you've got power and control, because you don't need control. You're so in control, you don't need it. I know it's a kind of paradox, but to me, this is maybe what Mercury retrograde is going to be teaching you, or helping you to explore, is, what is going to give me more freedom in my relationships, and how can that work out? So this is a very sort of intense part of your chart. for a good couple of weeks. But here's where it gets very, very exciting. And this is at the time of the full moon in Aquarius. Now, it's exciting for quite a few reasons, but this is, I think, the main one, because Mars is going to be in this very zippy grand trine with Pluto and Uranus. See, Pluto and Uranus have been hooked up for quite a while, and they've both been working with Saturn and Neptune. But Mars is also coming into view. And, Pluto and Mars work very well. In fact, they're the two rulers of your 10th house to do with your career. So this is going to have a great impact on your career for sure, which I talk about in my career update. But yeah, this sort of power trine is really going to get things moving. And this is getting things moving in terms of your creativity and your lust for life, your need for change, your need for evolution, your need for things to feel exciting again. And, pardon me if I go back to this new moon in Leo, this particular this particular grand trine, as far as I can see, is almost helping you create that feeling of movement, that feeling of fun, this feeling of it's spontaneous, it's transformed. Well, that's not actually too dissimilar to maybe what your partners are feeling, with this new moon in the sign of Leo. They're coming into their sovereignty and they're being playful and passionate, purposeful, uninhibited. And I think you actually share some of these traits between these times. So yeah, I do think, by the time the full moon in Aquarius comes along, you'll be probably in a bit of a different state of mind, which will be quite helpful. Now, on this particular day as well, Mars is making that exact trine to Uranus. Now, I did mention this at the start. This is absolutely going to help you get a lot more creative. It's really sort of churning your need to be in a sort of process of birthing, and it's also creating this sense of escape, adventure, a sort of yearning for knowledge, almost like this. Well, in fact, I'll share with you how I felt around late summer last year when Mars was in my 9th house. I signed up for about 5 or 6 different courses within about 3 weeks of each other, because all of a sudden my lust for learning, for growing, for evolution, for knowing things, it was at an all-time high, and I had the energy for it. And so, yeah, I really think you're going to be learning 101 things in a really quick amount of time. This is very, very exciting. But yeah, Mars is also going to be in opposition to Saturn and to Neptune. Now, Saturn is the other ruler, and thankfully at the moment, your two rulers are working very collaboratively together, Saturn and Uranus in the sextile. But this opposition from Mars is a bit difficult. It can make us feel very willful, a little bit on the aggressive side, a little bit pushy, a little bit like, there's a bit of a tussle going on. But yeah, Saturn here is in your 3rd house. It's really encouraging and highlighting the sense of community and what you need from your community, what you need from a sense of belonging. But maybe it also represents where it feels like, your community is maybe a bit out of date. Maybe the sort of ethos, maybe the narrative that is the sort of commonly held belief systems, maybe they just feel out of kilter. And right now, Mars and his escape plan, his adventure hatch, his direction of where he's going. I think Mars and all his studying and all his excitement, I think Mars is really showing you what you're wanting. And, it just feels a little bit too local and a little bit too sticky around here. So again, I think this is really reflecting back this, do you want the control? This is how it is. Or do you want the light and free and that spontaneous kind of energy of the new moon in Leo, which is absolutely passionate and upbeat and uninhibited and really tending to their dreams? And so, yeah, I think as you're going through this forecast period, you're getting closer and closer to understanding what you need to keep your dreams alive. So, yeah, I hope that's helpful. A couple of other things I just want to share is, there's a lot going on in terms of your career and also obviously your relationship. But I also record a relationships forecast and a finance forecast. And in this week, I'm sharing some excerpts with you, which you don't have to pay for. You don't have to be a member to see. But I just thought it'd be nice to share some excerpts. So if you click on this link right now, go to this video, you'll get your excerpts. So have fun and catch up with you real soon. Lots of love. Bye for now.